and welcome to another episode of CTRMRadio, a podcast by Commodity Technology Advisory, hosted on CTRMCenter.com, your place for everything CTRM. And this is the first podcast of 2025. Happy New Year. And I thought we'd start by asking a number of people across the vendor space their views on trends in commodities in 2025 that would ultimately impact CTRM and related software. And of course, top of most people's list was geopolitics, headed by concern over a shift in administration in the United States and what that might mean generally for the industry. Here's Andre Jaeger at ION giving us his thoughts.
So I think there's definitely some uncertainty, especially now at the beginning of the year, kind of what are threats and what is kind of reality, and how is the market adapting to whatever new realities are. So based on the new administration in the US, we definitely will see a different approach to energy and climate policy. Big question if it will really impact global trade flow. There's some threats made, but it seems to be a little bit kind of a negotiation tactic. But on the other hand, it doesn't help to kind of make empty threats. So it will be interesting to see that. I think there were quite a few statements made around the Ukraine. And then it's interesting, what does that mean for Russian commodities? Will they return to market, or is that unrealistic? I think there's also some statements around LNG and natural gas. So policy changes around that. We definitely will see natural gas prices increase in the US because of the policy change, as well as more projects coming online, so more exports. Still tension in the Middle East, Israel, Iran, impact to oil exports. I think overall oil supply looks decent, strong non-OPEC growth and additional capacity in OPEC plus. But again, it feels to me that similar to what we have seen in the prior years, there's some geopolitical developments that potentially will drive commodity price volatility in 2025 again.
A little bit of time.
I think that's
right now too.
Yeah, and I think it's still one of the key things across to kind of be prepared. What does that mean? Supply chain disruption, trade restriction, more fragmentation of some of the markets, production cuts. So one thing to add to that, especially in North America, I think will be a little bit that return to fossil fuels. I think we never left really, but I think based on the policy changes, there will be also a little bit kind of, you will be less looked down on if you're still in fossil fuels. And that will be, I think, a little bit different between how the US and Europe is kind of moving ahead around that. So there's probably some rollbacks that will be happening on some of the Biden executive orders, some reduced regulation on many industries probably, maybe less spending on some of the climate change initiatives. So I don't think he will reverse that completely, but definitely a different kind of view and different policies around that.
Of course, with geopolitics comes uncertainty, and with uncertainty around changes comes risk. And so Rob Sanders at Dycotrade was very firmly of the opinion that risk management is something that people need to be taking care of.
Yeah, of course, you have the more geopolitical trends, like sustainability. What is a trend for everybody? How to deal with that, how to report with that. Another trend is risk management in general. And that has to do with the volatility in the world. So the more changes there are, the more uncertainty there is, the more is a wish for real risk management systems, and not trust on Excel sheets only, what a lot of traders use, of course. So that means that robust IT systems and robust CTRM systems are becoming more and more important. Also, the shareholders and the banks, they want to have proof that your risk management is in order. Also due to the fact that foreign exchange and hedging foreign exchange, so it's also part of risk management. That should be in order for everybody, because the changes are going so fast, so the risks are enormous when you not have that in control.
Yeah.
It's a bit like gambling in the casino, actually.
And of course, when it comes to risk management and geopolitics and volatility and change in the marketplace, credit risk is another area of concern. And Natallia Hunik of CubeLogic, talk to me about those concerns.
Yeah, the first thing I think about now that we are in January 2025 is obviously kind of reflecting on what has happened in 2024, where more than half of the world went into elections, and as a result of those elections, the governing parties in most places were dethroned. And I think lots of credit managers around the world are thinking about, how are these fundamental shifts in policies are going to impact their portfolios, right? And looking at their portfolios and trying to think where the next storm might be coming for them. To do that effectively and efficiently, you really need, a system that does that monitoring dynamically, that simplifies the process of onboarding. And in 2024, we've certainly seen lots of our clients come to us and asking to extend the use of application by automating their credit onboarding processes, but not only automating the credit onboarding processes and beyond, extending the onboarding processes to the KYC, for example, right? Asking us to make our software more integrated into the landscape, the data landscape. So last year, we focused a lot on developing interfaces to various data vendors, worked closely with many of them, like S&P and Moody's and many other ones, to make sure that we have enough connectivity that our clients can tap into and power their processes with. I mean, think about it, that CubeLogic is really a car, but the data is an engine. So we're tapping into multiple sources of data to make sure that our clients all around the world, and many of them are obviously global, operating on a global scale, that they're able to tap into the right data and make their processes automated and seamless, and shorten the time to market, but also enable them to monitor their portfolio on a holistic basis, and identify those almost like a heat map, identifying the potential areas of concerns, and drilling down, zooming into those issues, and doing further analysis on them.
So you're looking for more geopolitical shocks, basically.
I think our clients are absolutely, and I think all of us, all of us humans, right, observing what's happening. We all have, all sorts of concerns. But I think from the credit perspective, you wonder, what are the policy changes? How will that shift your credit risk? Overall credit risk, and also what areas, whether it's geographic or industry, you should be looking at.
Meanwhile, Ben Tranier of EnergyOne brought up an interesting aspect to what might happen with the Trump administration, which is the introduction of tariffs and the impact of tariffs on NGL into Europe.
Definitely, when you think about geopolitics, you think about what's happening in the US with the change in the president. Obviously, it brings uncertainty in the LNG, right? So last year, 50% of the LNG came from the US. We don't know what's going to happen in terms of tariffs, in terms of increase of volume. So there are big investments in Northern Europe. Greece is now insured. We're seeing new players coming into the LNG markets. Some short-term trading in Spain, for example, with virtual energy. So definitely very interesting on that areas, and we're going to really focus on that on one side.
Yet another area of concern around the concept of geopolitics and disruption to markets was traceability. And that's what I got into with Richard Williamson of Gen10.
I mean, there's quite a lot happening, I think. A lot of uncertainty around geopolitical stuff is happening. That will have impact on trading decisions, and it will have impact on the tools that those traders use to navigate the waters as things change, not just from the volatility of the markets, but making sure your optionality built into your contracts to have replacement origins or something like that. Traceability is going to be key. EUDR got pushed back a year, but it's still going to happen. And EUDR related stuff, where you need to be able to trace things back to origin, and responsible sourcing, etc. There's the CBAM, emissions reporting. There's been a couple of false starts on the carbon side, but at least people required to calculate what their footprints are, both scope or all three, scope 1, 2, and 3. That's going to impact. It's going to impact inventories, the different quality parameters. Your carbon emissions will be a quality parameter on your inventories, and you need to have that all integrated with your shipping, logistics, your contract management. And I think the art is bringing all of that together as one risk management picture, as opposed to different silos of market exposure, of inventory and traceability, of emissions. You've got to tie all of that together.
And when it came to traceability in general, Ben at EnergyOne also had some thoughts on how traceability may affect players in European power markets.
On top of LNG, batteries, increase in the intraday volumes, ancillary services, you think about new regulations, things, for example, like granular certificate. Right now, the guarantee of origin are monthly or yearly products. People think that they can actually move to hourly or sub-hourly, with also new challenges, right? What happens if you store solar power in a battery and you sell it 3 hours later, right? What should be the guarantee of origin on that electricity? So traceability is going to be a big challenge, and the CTRM definitely needs to be ready for all of that. Now think about biogas. Keep bringing new products, new regulations, extra need for traceability, but also how you're going to nominate biogas on the grids, how you're going to make the difference. It's going to be for guarantee of origin. So quite an interesting year ahead, I will say.
And Natallia at CubeLogic also had some other thoughts about geopolitics as it relates to market risk.
Absolutely, and we've had some developments in that product line at CubeLogic. We do have a market risk product line. We've invested time and effort into that line over the last several years. Again, driven by client demand, and to your point, our clients are looking for tools to be able to kind of ad hoc stress their portfolios. As you mentioned, black swans. I mean, those seem to be happening unpredictably at least once a year now. Everyone's concerned about the frequency of those events and also the unpredictable nature of it. And so as a part of different working groups last year, I've heard multiple CROs, the risk officers, thinking of stress scenarios, right? Designing the stress scenarios for their organizations and thinking, how do they deploy them? How do they monitor the stress scenarios? How do they iterate? And we've introduced some tools within our market risk product line to be able to stress test your portfolio.
Harry Knott of Quor Eka was also concerned about a shift in US administration and raised foreign exchange as one of the areas that people needed to pay attention to before getting into talking about artificial intelligence and the role that it might play.
I guess from the market point of view, and there are a lot of factors which still have a lot of kind of uncertainty or instability around them. New government in the States, threats of a lot of tariffs and a lot of question marks over foreign policy gives a lot of volatility in commodities and foreign exchange, which people need to manage. I think that's going to be something people have to deal with and have to have the tools to deal with. I think in terms of the CTRM market point of view, there's a lot of interesting stuff going on with AI.
Yeah.
A lot of people want to have an AI project, which is a bit of a red flag because it's a kind of hot topic and people want to be seen to be doing things, which is sometimes overrides the rationale for why you're doing the thing. But I think it's a very powerful tool or set of tools, and there are a lot of very interesting use cases. So certainly we're looking at that at Quor Group. We're looking at that from the point of view of tools that improve our internal efficiencies, so producing code more efficiently, producing test cases more efficiently, running our processes, running our services processes more efficiently, getting more use of the data that we've got internally. And then within our software, there are also some interesting use cases to help basically improve the efficiency of some of the inefficiencies that customers have within their manual operations and things that are not easy to do or repetitive or time consuming or expensive to do for people within their current processes. So I think, there's definitely some interesting opportunities there for people who have good ideas for things that can be streamlined, automated, improved, or to gain new insights from data that you've got.
And next, we talked to Mark Tredway of Enuit. Mark wanted to point out one of the trends in terms of technology, in terms of the migration to the cloud, the shift to software as a service and cloud native ecosystems.
Yeah, I think one of the biggest shifts that we're going to see in 2025 is the dominance of more modular cloud native ETRM systems. The industry has been moving away from monolithic one-size-fits-all solutions for years, obviously, as you know, but the focus is really now on flexibility. Businesses want systems that they can customize, that they can integrate. We've seen a lot of integration seamlessly with other tools, even integration with other ETRM systems we've started to see as businesses scale up and down as they need it. For example, here in Europe, the energy transition is creating a demand for systems that can manage complex new contracts like PPAs or carbon credits. In the Middle East, as the countries diversify into LNG and renewables, the ability to integrate emerging markets with traditional commodities is critical. And the US and APAC, once again, we've got the agricultural trades, metals, logistics. Cloud native systems are becoming essential for managing these fluctuating volumes and these dynamic supply chains. I believe it's not just about moving to the cloud anymore, it's about systems that adapt to your needs, not the other way around.
So ecosystems are in, legacy monoliths are out.
Out, exactly right, yeah.
And when it came to migration to the cloud, plainly quite a lot of the people that we talked to saw this as a trend. But in particular, Rob Sanders had some interesting comments from Dycotrade.
The other trend are more the technological trends.
Right.
Almost everybody goes to the cloud these days.
Right.
And AI is not only hype, but also they can speed up your production. It's not taking over the work of a trader, of course, but it's more a trading assistant, an AI trading assistant.
Right.
For example, the trader comes in the office and every day he starts with checking the latest news on oil, on grain, on prices, on currencies, etc., and the latest newsletters. And the trading assistants make sure that your dashboard is there, and it helps you, and that saves you time and gives you time to think and take the real decisions. That's actually what AI will do in the future.
Whilst geopolitics was the main trend for 2025 that everybody mentioned in one form or another, whatever impact or sub-trend they saw as part of geopolitics, there were other trends that came up outside of that and the technology trend to the cloud and ecosystems, one being electrification.
When we look at the massive electrification we're seeing in Europe, trying to reduce the gas dependencies by adding new renewables, but obviously that brings volatile generation profile. From a CTRM perspective, the explosion of volume obviously presenting challenges that we'll have to answer differently with different solutions, different systems, different technology. So something that's really we're keen to invest. We're also seeing new business processes, right? So people start trading in the frequency markets, so the ancillary services, so frequency response markets. A lot of batteries coming online in 2025. So we'll have to address that from a CTRM perspective, but also from all the dispatching and balancing business processes. We need to have solutions for all of that.
We definitely have a gap between ambitions as well as targets and kind of limited availability of green energy supply. So that will be interesting to see kind of how that plays out. So we still have kind of primary energy demand is growing. And sometimes when you talk about some of the gaps, doesn't matter if it's SAF or even some of the other areas, it seems to be not realistic to close that gap in that time frame without spending lots and lots of money on it. So it will be interesting to kind of see how that plays out.
Yeah.
If we're adjusting targets because they're not achievable, we ignore the targets, or we really put that additional money in to kind of maybe get a little bit closer. But that again has a lot of potential on kind of impacting volatility of commodities across. The other big thing, as a continuation, a little bit electrification, transportation EV, but also AI data centers acceleration. So I think there's a lot of kind of demand on the electricity side. Demand will grow significantly on the power and electricity side. So I think this is the main items, but yeah, a little bit uncertain to see kind of what is the threat and what is the reality that will happen after the new administration comes into play in the US.
Meanwhile, when it came to technology trends like the migration to the cloud, Mark Tredway came up with the sort of precursor to that, which is migration from legacy systems. Are we going to see more replacements in 2025 and beyond as people migrate to the cloud, to ecosystems and away from legacy software?
Yeah, so I guess prediction, legacy system replacements, I guess will accelerate due to market complexity and cost. I feel legacy systems are becoming a serious liability for many businesses. They're expensive to maintain, difficult to adapt, and they simply can't keep up with the complexity of modern trading environments. In fact, the cost of keeping those old systems running, from what we've seen, is often higher than implementing a modern solution. It's a big reason why we're seeing companies shift to platforms that not only handle multi-commodity trading, but also integrate seamlessly with other tools and scale as needs change. For example, obviously, Entrade offers this kind of adaptability, but they're also built on modern technology that reduces the hidden costs. There's no more constant updates or patches or specialized support needed. What we've seen in APAC, for instance, is the sheer scale of trade growth in India and China is making legacy systems unsustainable. Even in the Middle East, the diversification into LNG and hydrogen trading is adding, I guess, layers of complexity that older systems just weren't designed for.
Mm-hmm.
In Europe and the Americas, companies are replacing legacy systems because they need platforms that can handle the volatility in markets like agriculture and energy. I guess, in my mind, it's not just about modernization, it's also about cutting costs and staying competitive.
And of course, when you bring up the topic of legacy systems, migration to cloud and ecosystems, the next topic is integration, making everything work together. And so we had a couple of our guests address that topic.
There's ever more kind of need for automation, straight through processing. So the ease of integration, the ease of interoperability.
Yeah.
We just see more and more of that stuff. So the number of people making use of APIs to integrate with systems, with third-party systems, with their own tools, with their own applications, with their own reporting frameworks, that just keeps going on. And more we kind of see our tools that we provide, whether it's a full CTRM front back or whether it's a modular component, one of the key things is that have to interoperate with upstream, downstream third-party system to make it to really deliver the value that people need, rather than just having an island of functionality that sits by itself. To that end, what we've done within, we've got multiple products within the Quor Eka family. So putting in things that work in a similar way, the same technology standards, the same way of calling functions, the same way of interoperating between applications, the same way of authentication, permissioning, those sorts of things, having a more kind of standardized way of doing everything that you interact within our system infrastructure. That basically makes it easier for us to roll out new interfaces, new features. It makes it easier for customers to consume it, or for system integrators who are familiar with one product and how you integrate that. Picking up a second product will work in largely the same way, the same principles, the same standards. So it does reduce our kind of time to onboard people, time to train stuff up and train staff up and train up third parties as well.
Well, one thing that's really interesting for us is, whilst we're very firmly in the, on the backbone of commodity commodity trading, commodity procurement management systems, which helping them do their day job of contracts, the onboarding of new clients and all of the due diligence around that, and getting things shipped around the world on time and the documents to support it, get those quickly to the bank so you get paid. You have these other service providers that look at the macro level of things like port congestions, around the Suez Canal, around around the Middle East, and they're coming up with some really good visuals on things, but where they talk about actionable insights, but they're still at the very best they tend to be. It's unidirectional, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
Right.
Whereas you might have a look at port congestion and be able to bring in information from your CTRM system to be able to see what your part in that puzzle is. But and they call them actionable insights, and they are actionable, but you can't action them from those platforms.
Right.
You still have to go back to the system. So what we're very excited to be bringing this year is having that two-way integration with those types of systems. So you can see the macro level, but from there you'll be able to drill down to what are the contracts that might be affected, or which shipments are en route there. Do you need to make any alternative arrangements because of the latest sanction or the latest the latest import taxes or whatever is going to come at us over the next 12 months.
And finally, I thought that Andre Jaeger, ION, did a wonderful job of outlining the issues faced by a vendor in this space, trying to juggle the old with the new, the changes and shifts in the industry and the need for integration.
So I think it's partially also a continuation for us. I think we always had kind of the strong focus around kind of providing the right mix of supporting kind of traditional fossil fuels, as well as kind of the renewable business, because we have a lot of clients that we serve that kind of have that combined business. And there's a lot of interactions anyway, and there's a lot of efficiencies gains you can have by managing the combination. So if we talk about fuels or gases, there's a lot of kind of blending. Is being able to manage some of the certificates activities along kind of your biofuel activity. Mm-hmm. So this was always a combination, and I think that's clearly a continuation for us to kind of work with the client community that we have and kind of jointly prioritize what are the things that kind of bring the greatest amount of value to that. The idea of making stuff easier for them, so is on one hand, we see still a decent amount of complexity managing bespoke contracts, doesn't matter if it's PPAs or long-term delivery contracts. And you need to manage kind of that sophistication and complexity from a risk management, from a kind of delivery perspective. On the other hand, you have also some areas where high volume and standardized trading is more important, or kind of more and more clients looking into globalization of their portfolios. So it's kind of supporting kind of on one hand that level of sophistication that's required to kind of be able to offer bespoke type of business models, and on the other hand kind of have that scalability to kind of manage that high volume trading where maybe the margins are a little bit smaller. And then I think also continuation is that whole topic automation streamlining, of course, with some additional focus around AI and ML, see kind of how we can utilize that. But at the end, the theme is the same. You want to automate, you want to streamline, you want to do more with less. It's just now we have some additional tools in that area that might make it easier to kind of automate some of these activities. Same, utilize more of the computing power that's available in the cloud. Building more integration, more standardization with partners, with our own solutions that we have in the portfolio. So just kind of make it easier for clients to automate and streamline some of their business processes.
Well, there you go. That's a mixture of trends from geopolitics to legacy, CTRM movement to the cloud, electrification, traceability, you name it, we had it mentioned. Many thanks to our guests on this episode. I hope you found it useful and enjoyed it. If you did, please do like and share, tell people about CTRM Radio, and don't forget to visit CTRMcenter.com, your place for everything CTRM. This is Gary Vasey with Comtech Advisory saying thank you for watching. Goodbye.